Hey, thank y'all so much for joining us, and welcome to Wyoming. Hey, thank y'all for joining us. We have some special episodes coming up for y'all. What is it all about? The Great American West, the history, the food, here in the beautiful state of Wyoming, and it all starts at breakfast. Mornings at the Wagon are very special. You know, first thing you head to that wagon and always find me a lantern. Just that little hum of a lantern that's going. And then you sort of tone that out to where you're just listening to what Mother Nature brings along to you. You would hear the crickets. And then as it began to get closer to light, the coyotes would start again, the turkeys would start again. But a sound that I always remember, even in the dark, early in the morning, was a jingling of spurs coming towards camp. And when you had stayed there long enough, I knew who was coming to camp by the way their spurs sounded as they were getting there. You know, when you're cooking for cowboys on a ranch, days start early. You know, I can remember the times that been as early as 2:30, but it's a job that I look forward to. I'd always have wood in Bertha most of the time to where I could just sort of put a little more kindling in there or get that old propane torch out, you know, and get that fire to rolling. And coffee water was always there, and I'd slide it over the top of an eye, take an eye out of Bertha and get that coffee to boiling, because that is the life's blood of what's fixing to happen that day. So there'd usually be 2 big pots of coffee that we'd always have. You know, coffee has been around forever. It's not made out here in one of them Keurigs or anything that's a spit and sputter coffee. You know, it's just an old coffee pot that's been well seasoned from many, many gallons of black gold that's been poured to it. And slide it over that fire, let that water warm. And I'd always put in 3 really big handfuls of coffee and bring that coffee to a boil. You know, and I'm not talking just a little boil, I'm talking a good rolling boil. Let it boil for 4 or 5 minutes, slide it off the fire, put a little cold water down the spout. You had the smoothest coffee that you was ever going to drink in your life. Because coffee is what's going to start that crew out. That's where they head to first. All the cowboys would always gather, get them coffee cups, and that's where it'd start. You know, Bertha is that old wood stove of mine, and she's been with me a long time, but long before that it was a hole in the ground, you know, and you throwed some grate over it or something like that, but you's always bending over, always on your knees, always down there in the fire. You never knew what fell in it. Millers are falling in it, bugs is crawling in it, you know, and you just keep mashing them up. They just make a little lumpier gravy that way. But Bertha is self-contained, which really was a blessing on so many ranches that we was on, because a lot of it is just old dry grass that's around you in camp, and always worry about one of them old holes in the ground. If the wind got up or if a cold got away from you, you know, you could burn 40,000 acres down in a hurry. When old Cookie was going down the trail in the 1880s, breakfast was just as important then as it is now. Sure, them boys had a lot of beans. They had some biscuits. They'd have some salt pork, maybe. And every once in a while, if Cookie was generous, maybe some gravy. But, you know, he did that job. That's what he had to work with, and I'm blessed that I get to be able to walk in his footsteps. But man, oh man, have the groceries changed. Cookie's staple was sourdough, still is ours today. You'd put it in a crock jar. It's something that you always had with you, and it's so versatile because you could use it to make bread, pancakes, pie crust, biscuits, whatever you want to do. It was just there. It took the place of milk in so many recipes. Sourdough never had yeast traditionally. sourdough got what it needed from the atmosphere, you know, and that's what made it grow. I don't have a sourdough starter like that. We have what I really replicated as a quick and easy sourdough starter. It's just water and sugar, yeast. Let that yeast dissolve a little bit. The sugar's going to kick-start it, so it makes it work even faster. Add you a flour in there, about 4 cups. Peel a russet potato, drop it in that crock jar, stir it up real well, put a cup towel over it so it can breathe, because you have a living thing there. 12 hours in, it's ready to use. The reason I use that kind of sourdough starter is I can use it 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, pour it out, start another batch. It ain't like I'm having to feed somebody's sourdough starter forever and ever and ever. My dad would tell me stories about them old cooks having to sleep with their sourdough starter in a bedroll to keep it warm, keep it active, you know. And you can go back to the Alaskan trappers when they were up there and they had sourdough starter and they kept it in a little old pouch next to their body, to their chest, where it always stay warm, because it's got to have that warmth to really work. When we were really cooking in some colder climates, colder ranches, we'd go a lot of times back to a baking powder biscuit or a buttermilk biscuit, because you wanted to get that rise out of it. But like this morning, we started out with a sourdough pancake, because really you get the tanginess of the sourdough and the little sweetness you add from the sugar. But when you top that off with some maple syrup, something like that, and then you top that even more with some scrambled eggs, green chilies, bacon, it is a full meal deal. It is a happy meal. We got to fuel them cowboys for a long day. Breakfast to me really is probably the most important meal that we can put out, because they need that kickstart. They need that energy. These people become me and Shan's responsibility. You know, they are our family. They're something that we're having to take care of. So we want to make sure that before they do bovine battle, hey, we have filled them to the brim. They've got enough caloric intake that they're going to make it to lunch. You know, cooking for cowboys, especially at breakfast time, you know, dark is there. You don't know what's really coming. Sure, I used to have a little old transistor radio at a certain station, and you'd catch a little weather. And sometimes I'd wished I'd never turned it on, because you hear that weatherman saying, boy, big change is coming today here in the Golden Spread. Expect north winds 55, 60 mile an hour, wind chill -20. And I'm thinking, why did I even turn that radio on? Weather plays a great factor. I've had it blow the fly plumb down, rip it from shreds from one end to the other, blow teepees down. I've had it rain and so hard that you couldn't hardly keep a fire going, even in Old Bertha, because it was just blowing that water so fast. Cooked under the wagon to cook biscuits, you know, to keep them in the dry. Turn tables over the top of them to use them as an umbrella. But I think one of the coldest, worst days I ever remember was in the Palo Duro Canyon, and it was probably -5, -6, and the wind blowing about 40. Water barrel was froze solid, and I remember thinking, I need to make some coffee. So I just get an old butcher knife and just go around there and I just go to chopping ice to fill a coffee pot up, and we make coffee that way. Because when you start this job, you finish the job.
You gotta get this, Kent.
You know, I've had a lot of guests come into camp, 2-legged, 4-legged, some no-legged. The no-legged ones was the one really that I worried about, and that's them old rattlesnakes. I can remember one morning out there on Turkey Creek, old Chris Morton, dear friend of mine, he'd always knew he could come early for coffee, and he'd come over about 3:30. We'd sit there, drink coffee, turn the lantern off where nobody else would bother us. And it was quiet as it could be that morning. And I remember hearing that sound, that just that little old rattle. Chris looked over at me and he said, "You think that's a rattlesnake?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Where do you think you at?" And I said, "Somewhere between me and you." And he said, "Why don't you get up and get the flashlight and see if you can find him?" I said, "Why don't you get up and see if you can find him?" So I told him, I said, "Let's just sit here, let him crawl on through camp. Just let him go." Well, here in a minute, we couldn't hear him no more, and I lit the lantern, and there's no sandy place where we was camping, and you could see his track in that sand. He'd crawled between my chair and Chris's chair. Later on that day, after it warmed up a little, he come out of that wood pile. He was hors d'oeuvres that night. Well, breakfast is a done deal, and the Cowboys rode out in the dark this morning. They did. So first thing you do is you got to clean up, wash all the dishes. But then after that, we really clean the iron, make sure that everything's really good, re-season all the iron, and make sure you got enough wood. Cut some wood up if you need some kindling. But after that, you get to thinking, what's for lunch? You know, there's a little prep that goes in that. But usually, if me and Shannon are on a ranch and we have breakfast like at 5 or 5:30, Cowboys go off, we have the dishes washed, we go back teepee and we take a nap for 2 hours and then get up and start over. You have to figure out how to get that sleep in. But today's a little different. We did have about an hour and a half of downtime really before we started back, because we have to take lunch to Cowboys today. So it's sort of a grab and go blue plate special today with some Cowboy sloppy joes and some brownies. You know, there's a lot of ranches that I've been on that at least maybe 3 times in a 3-week gathering or something like that, that you would have to take lunch to a set of pens to where they were working cattle, because it really wasn't feasible for them to go work cattle and then come 17 miles back to where you were and then go 17 miles back. So I'd usually try to fix something that I could rewarm on a fire up there, on a Brandon fire or something like that, bring a dessert, bring a cornbread, bring it as brownies, something like that, and you could have it for the Cowboys, and that way it didn't really interrupt that schedule. Took a little more time out of my day to get it all put together and take it somewhere, but hey, that's what it's about. When you hire on to feed them, you got to feed them anywhere they're at. We finished up, wrapped up in the lunchbox. The Yeti is going to the top of the mountain to see the Cowboys. Fall works is over. I mean, they have brought the cattle down from the mountains. They have got them where they need to be, and it is family night at the Wagon. This is a tradition that has went on as long as I've been cooking. When the fall works were over, all the family members come out, the wives, the children, and of all the Cowboys, you invite all the guests. Hey, we're going to feed about 40 tonight, but this is what it's all about. This is Cowboy heritage. This is the way it's meant to be. But folks, y'all are family to us too. We couldn't make it without you. We depend on each and every one of you to watch these videos. And hey, the great state of Wyoming, we're just glad to be here. But hey, I ask you to just come on in here real close, because what? We're going to tip our hat to all the servicemen and women and all the veterans that have kept that flag flying over camp. Rest of you, come on in here. Get close now, because this is family night. I'm going to give you a family hug. God bless you, each and every one, and we'll see you down the trail. I always used to tell people, why they'd ask, why you don't get up so early? I said, nobody's had time to mess up the day yet. It's dark, this is mine and God's time.